My grandfather's death was quick, almost clean. A fall, a fracture, a medical complication. There was no time for goodbyes. There was no will. That's what they said. And there, in that first void, something broke, because he and I talked. A lot. We were close. He told me things he didn't tell anyone else. I knew about his assets, about his decisions, about his values, and he promised me something. Not material things. Presence. Recognition. You'll see, when I'm gone. Everything will be clear. But what came next was anything but clear. My mother told me there was nothing to claim. Your uncles handled it. That was their wish. And I, in my 20s and with a grief stuck in my chest, swallowed the doubt. But he didn't leave, because in the distribution, everyone received something, except me. A field, a car, a commercial space. Everything was distributed at an inconvenient speed. No lawyers, no public documents, only agreements between them. And one certainty, I was left out. But my grandfather wasn't like that. It never was. And although I couldn't prove it, something inside me knew that there was no will was such a poorly constructed lie that it would only take a thread to pull and bring everything down. It took me 12 years to find that thread, but I found it. And when I pulled on it, everything fell apart. They never told me directly. There was no phrase like, "You don't count." But every gesture screamed that. I was excluded from the important meetings. They never told me when things were being signed. The papers were passed from hand to hand, among them, as if I were invisible. I found out about the changes through third parties. A neighbor mentioning a property, an accountant saying, "I didn't know that already belonged to your uncle." And every time he asked, he received the same answer. That was already agreed upon. He wanted it that way. But where was it written? Where was the evidence? Nobody showed a document, just isolated words, selective memories, complicit silences. I was the granddaughter who didn't get involved, the one who didn't understand numbers, the one who would be best to stay out of it, as if I were being punished for thinking differently, for not living nearby, for not keeping completely silent. And the worst part is, for years they convinced me that doubting was ungrateful. What are you going to do? Accuse your own family? And that phrase haunted me, because yes, I thought about it, many times, but I didn't. I kept the anger to myself like someone keeps an unopened letter. I knew that one day something was going to happen, that the crack was going to appear, that the story was going to unravel, and then I was going to look everyone in the eye and ask, where is the truth? The silence was not resignation, it was strategy. While they embraced in their family power circle, I watched. He kept records of dates, phrases, and movements. I knew who was saying what, who was signing, who was disappearing for periods of time. I didn't do it out of obsession. He did it because something didn't add up. It couldn't be that my grandfather, that meticulous, structured, almost paranoid man with papers, hadn't left anything. Not a single document, not a single email, not a single official will, nothing. But every time she tried to search, she ran up against an emotional wall. Let it go. That's not what he would have wanted. You're reliving painful things. It was as if questioning the official version made me the enemy, the annoying granddaughter, the one who can't get over the past. So I learned to smile at family dinners. I pretended it didn't hurt me to see them enjoying a house that used to belong to my grandfather. I had to swallow my anger every time I heard my uncle say, "Your grandfather was a fair man. He made everything clear." Sure, but not for me, because in his justice, my name had been blotted out, or at least that's what it seemed. Until one day, as if by chance, I heard something that gave me back my breath, and I knew that the game had started again. It was at an ordinary meeting, a Sunday lunch, the typical scene, laughter, wine, recycled anecdotes, and my cousin, distracted, opened her laptop on the table while she was on the phone. "Yes, I have that file, the one with the Old Testament. We'll review it tomorrow." Silence. I was close. Very close. She didn't realize it. Or perhaps he thought I didn't understand what he was saying. But in my head, everything froze. Old Testament? Which will? When she hung up, she tried to close the screen, but her folder remained open. And there, in clear letters, I read, ABQ Original Testament. PDF, ABQ, my grandfather's initials, and that's when I knew. It always existed. The will that everyone denied for more than a decade was on his computer. I got up from my seat with a trivial excuse. I'm going to the bathroom. But what I did was go out to the patio, get some air, and feel my heart pounding. The betrayal had a name, archive, format, date, and it was recent. Not from 12 years ago. No. The last modification was only 6 months old. That meant they had checked it, that they had opened it, that they knew it existed. And yet, they lied to me. I left that meeting with a certainty etched into my bones. It wasn't a suspicion. It was a conspiracy, and it was about to break. I didn't sleep that night. I could only think about the file, the name, the possibility that everything I had suspected for years was true. The next morning, I pretended to be interested in having coffee with my cousin. She accepted, without suspecting anything. A casual chat, forced laughter, and when she went to the bathroom, her backpack was left on the chair, and his USB drive hanging from the keychain. I didn't hesitate. I took it. I slipped it into my bag and left, saying I had an urgent call. Half an hour later, I was in front of my laptop, trembling. The file was there. I opened the document. The screen took a while to load. So did my heart. And when he appeared, the first thing I saw was his signature, my grandfather's, and then my name. Clear, legible, with direct inheritance of 2 properties, a savings account, and a personal clause. To my granddaughter, for her integrity and for never expecting anything in return, I leave what represents my trust. I had to stop, breathe, hold my head. 12 years. 12 years of lies, concealment, and selective erasure. That document was a bombshell, not only because I appeared as the direct heir, but because several properties now in the hands of my uncles legally belonged to me. The royal will, hidden, erased from family history, but now in front of me, and with it, a truth that hurt more than oblivion. They saw me, and yet they decided to make me disappear. The day I decided to confront them, I wasn't trembling. There was no anger, only surgical clarity. I summoned them to my mother's house. Pretext, something important to discuss. Almost everyone was there. My uncles, my cousin, even a distant cousin who always knew more than he let on. I had the printed document, folded, in my bag. I waited for the empty phrases and awkward jokes to end. And then I spoke. I found my grandfather's original will. Silence. Just glances that crossed paths, searching for a script that no one had prepared. I took out the sheet. I placed it on the table. My name is there. It's not symbolic. It's property. It's direct words. It's a legal decision. My older uncle was the first to speak. That doesn't matter anymore. What's done is done. But her voice was trembling. My cousin didn't say anything. She couldn't. The others lowered their gaze. Nobody denied it. Nobody tried to lie, because they knew they couldn't anymore. The truth was written, sealed, signed, and for the first time in that room, the power was not in their hands. It was in me, not because of the document, because of what it represented, the proof that everything they made me feel, that I was worthless, that I didn't matter, that I was crazy for being suspicious. It was part of a strategy, and that strategy had failed. It wasn't immediate, because justice, when it comes to family and hidden inheritances, is slow and cruel and sometimes maddening. I hired a lawyer. I showed him the document. We verified the authenticity, the notary seal, the date, the signatures. Everything was legal. Everything was in order. And yet, months would pass before anything was resolved. Their defense was based on technicalities. The will was not registered on time. The inheritance has already been distributed. But none of that erased the fact. I was excluded knowingly. The first hearing was brutal. My uncle wouldn't even look me in the eye. My cousin pretended she didn't know anything. Their lawyer tried to dismiss the document as if it were a filing error, but every word on that paper was true, and every silence from them was a tacit confession. The judge asked for time. Me too. Time to heal. Time to understand that this fight was not about land or accounts. It was for something deeper, emotional repair. Because when a family erases you, it doesn't do it with open violence. It does so by omission, with gentle phrases that hurt more than a shout. And to recover what was mine, was, in reality, to recover myself. The ruling came on a Thursday at noon. I remember it because it was hot, and yet, my hands were cold. The judge spoke clearly. This court recognizes the validity of the will presented by the plaintiff. I won. I recovered 2 properties, partial compensation, and the right to have my name listed as what I always was, legitimate heir. But beyond the failure, what I felt was something else, something I hadn't experienced in 12 years, dignity. I took a deep breath. I left the room without looking back, not because it didn't hurt, but because he no longer had to prove anything. My family, the one that was built on omission and silent sharing, was reorganized without me, and it was fine, because I finally understood that external recognition only matters when one does not recognize oneself internally. I rebuilt myself, with each broken silence, with each truth recovered, with each legal step that gave me back my voice. Today I live in one of the spaces that belonged to my grandfather, not because I need it, but because it reminds me that justice, even if it comes late, exists, and that when one defends their truth, even if I tremble, even though it hurts, even if it takes years, the soul settles, and the name regains its place. For 12 years I lived with the feeling of having been forgotten, silenced, replaced. But what hurt the most was not the material loss. It was the idea that those who claimed to love me, they were able to erase my existence with a single decision. Today, I no longer seek to belong to a shared surname. I seek to honor the voice I silenced for too long, because every signature omitted, every word left unsaid, every truth hidden, it became the force that brought me here. If you too suspected your story, if you felt that something wasn't told to you, that something didn't add up, write it here below. I am also searching for the truth. And tell me, where are you watching this story from, and what time is it there? Because maybe this is also your moment to open the envelope.